Swing and a drive. Right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawly Jean.
This is the Fly the W 670 podcast, and we are live with you guys today. It is season number 4. It's episode 35 on the Fly the W podcast. The Cubs starters, Crawly, they get their revenge versus the Reds. We want you to remember to listen, download, subscribe, and most importantly, review the podcast. Follow on all the socials. I'm at Mully and Haw on X.
And you can follow me at Crawly's Cubs on X, Blue Sky, and TikTok, and Crawly's Clubhouse on Facebook, Instagrams, YouTube, and Threads. You can email us at Crawly's Clubhouse at gmails.com if you have any questions or thoughts that you want to contribute to the show, or just comment right here. We're glad to have you and hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. We welcome the interaction. Well, Crawly, we said that the Cubs would win 2 out of 3, and that's exactly what they did. It wasn't easy. Friday was depressing, and let's start with Friday. Colin Ray, Andrew Abbott.
Yeah, I mean, this series pretty much went as I expected it. I thought that the Cubs did not have a good chance in game 1. I thought the Cubs had a great chance in game 3, and Ben Brown was the wild card in game 2, and luckily it came up well. So when you look at this first game, you know, there was a lot of it wasn't the greatest game. We'll let some of these guys here talk a little bit about game 1. Colin Ray, you know, he was wrecked by the Reds. We were hoping for a bounce back. And after the Reds lit him up in Cincy for 6 runs in 5 innings of work, this didn't go much better, Dustin. The very first batter he faces, TJ Friedl homers to put the Cubs up 1-0. An ominous sign there, right?
Oh, I mean, just an awful way to start a Friday afternoon. Only game going in baseball, and it was just an awful way to get things going. Awful.
He gave up a double to Ellie De La Cruz, who scores on a Gavin Lux single, and the Cubs are down 2-0 before they even come up to bat. Top of the 4th, 1 out, and Tyler Stevenson crushes one, 435 feet dead center into the juniper bushes to make it 4-0 Reds. And then the top of the 6th, 1 out, Ace Frehley, I'm talking about Kiss now. Jake Fraley hits a 2-run homer, and the Cubs are down 6-0. Ray would face one more batter before he was pulled. He basically had the same numbers as he did last weekend when the Reds put a beating on him. 6 runs in 5 2/3 innings, gave up a season-high 10 hits, 2 walks, and 3 Ks. Dustin, here is what Colin Ray had to say after the game was over.
I think the biggest thing was just my misses were kind of middle. If you go back and look at the homers, they were all kind of middle of the plate. So, I mean, it's just a little more focus, I guess, on where my misses are going to be on, with the ball coming out of my hand. Just have better misses. Delivery feels good and physically feel good.
So Dustin, when he's talking about the misses in baseball in general, if you miss on your fastball, you want to miss high, right?
Yep.
And if you miss on the breaking ball, you want it to be low. Mm-hmm. And all of his misses, like he talked about, this was the one against TJ Friedl right here. If you're watching on Crawly's Clubhouse on the Facebook channel, I mean, that is about as middle as you can get. 80-mile-per-hour curveball, dead center.
That's prime real estate right there. That is prime real estate.
How about this one against Stevenson? He's got a sinker that didn't sink, right about middle again. And then this one against Ace / TJ Friedl. That's, pretty much middle as well, an 86-mile-per-hour splitter. Right.
That's what we call getting too much of the white, correct?
Yeah.
Too much of you got too much of the white there, Crawly.
Right. I mean, it's just right there. It's right down the middle. I mean, I'm not saying we could hit them, but Major League Baseball players are going to put a hurting on those type.
Yeah, they're not going to miss that stuff. No.
So the question we got to ask ourselves, Dustin, is Colin Ray coming back to earth, or is this one of those cases where the Reds have his number? Now, you remember Kyle Hendricks, the great professor Kyle Hendricks. Mm-hmm. Every time against the Braves, he would get shellacked, and every time against the Cardinals, he would give up, 1 hit in 9 innings. I mean, he owned the Cardinals, got owned by the Braves. So is this a case that just the Reds have his numbers, or he's coming down to earth, regression.
Well, I'm hoping that it's not the regression. It's to be determined, right? I couldn't tell you distinctly. The good news, though, is right. The good news is that he has been very, very good. He has been better than advertised. I didn't see this coming. I don't think you could predict that you could have seen what he has done so far coming. So that's the good news. The other good news is, they kind of, when they maybe Shota gets back for the next homestand, right? Maybe against Pittsburgh. So at that point, maybe they've got to make some type of a move. I mean, Colin Ray can go to the bullpen if that was needed. So he'll get at least one more start before Shota gets back. And then I think we can better answer the question. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm looking here, right? So Colin has a 6.18 ERA, 19 earned runs in 27 and 2/3 innings in his last 5 starts since May 6th. Compare that to his previous 7 games. He had a 1.46 ERA in 4 starts, right? But in this month, Rays made 6 months, right? 3 were good, 3 were bad. He gave up 2 runs against the Pirates and Marlins and 1 run against the White Sox. He gave up 4 runs in 5 innings against the Giants. And then in the last week, he had to face Cincy twice, and he gave up 6 runs each time. So that's 12 runs, 16 runs combined to the Giants and the Reds. So I'm not hitting the panic button yet. But I will tell you, Dustin, there was Genesis Cabrera did get activated. He made his Cubs debut out of the pen.
Yes, he did.
I thought he looked pretty good in 1 1/3 innings, giving up no hits, walking 1, and striking out 3.
Yeah, it was fine, right? It was fine. It's kind of nondescript, not a ton of pressure at that point. No. The game was basically, you knew what the result was, but he looked fine. It looked like a decent bullpen type of piece to add to the mix.
How about this, though? Genesis Cabrera is the first player, manager, or coach to wear number 92 in franchise history.
Yeah, little interesting nugget, little side nugget there. It's good stuff.
Now, Andrew Abbott, I mean, oh boy, just as bad as it was last week for the Cubs offense.
Boy, does he look like not a really athletic looking guy. He looks more like a guy over at Butterfield Park playing softball than an actual Major League Baseball pitcher. The uniform doesn't fit either, or he needs to size up the uniform. I mean, that thing's like airbrushed on, man.
All I'm going to tell you is he's just got to keep doing what he's doing, because right now he's like the best pitcher in baseball.
Isn't it amazing though, right? You look at the guy, it's like Rick Russell out there all over again.
I love Big Diesel. Come on.
I don't dislike him. I'm just saying.
On.
I'm just saying.
Kyle Tucker had a first inning walk and Justin Turner had a 3rd inning single. That's all the base runners the Cubs had against Abbott, as the Cubs had no answers. He pitched 7 scoreless innings, 8 strikeout. PCA and Dansby were 0 for 7 against Abbott, with PCA striking out all 3 times he faced him and Dansby striking out twice. Now, again, don't feel bad, Cub fans, because Abbott was the best pitcher in baseball in the month of May. He allowed 1 run or fewer in 6 straight starts since May 1st. He has a .55 ERA, 2 runs in 32 innings during this stretch, Dustin. His .55 ERA in the month of May is the lowest among qualified Major League starters. So he's been making a lot of teams look bad.
Right. So it's not just the Cubs. And listen, we kind of, you pointed it out. I agreed with you that Friday was going to be tough. Plus the weather was not really conducive to offensive baseball.
The weather was a mess all weekend. You had big, bright, sunny skies, but it was cold with the wind blowing in. And it caused havoc, especially for the guys on the Reds. You remember last time the Cubs played the Reds, they were able to mount 2 come-from-behind wins against after the Cincy starters left the game, and they tried again in this one. Bottom of the 8th, 1 out. Nico doubles and scores on a Michael Busch pinch-hit triple. And then Busch would come around to score on a Matt Shaw single to make it 6-2. And Ian Happ walked to put runners at first and second with 1 out for the heart of the order, but Tucker grounded into a 3-6-1 double play to end the threat. Bottom of the 9th, Seiya Suzuki leads off with a double. He advances to 3rd on a Carson Kelly ground out. And then PCA, who struggled all day, hits a pop-up, right? And this pop-up lands in between a left fielder, center fielder, and shortstop. He's hustling out of the box. So Seiya's at 3rd, PCA with a double. I still laugh when they score that a double. It just only went 182 feet, right? But you got
that was a weird one. Yep, that was a weird one.
You got two guys in scoring position, but Terry Francona, he saw this movie before. He pulls the closer, Emilio. He puts in the closer, Emilio Pagan. He wasn't playing to put the fire out. And the Reds took this one 6-2. But Craig Counsell has said something interesting after the game. Even though they didn't come back, the fact that they're putting the pressure on at the end was important. Here's what Counsell had to say.
I think, we still yesterday, there was success yesterday. Like, we did put Pagan in the game. We did put Ashcraft in the game. Like, you don't know if that's going to pay off this weekend, but, you take a little dent, you make a little bit of a hit. We got a little bit of a punch in at the end of the game. That's better than nothing, right? Because the game was tracking to kind of nothing, right? We got a little punch in at the end, and hopefully it affects him over the course of the weekend.
Again, but Dustin,
I like that from Craig. I do. I like that from Counsell.
Right. That is so important because 6-0, you could easily just, fold it up, try to get him tomorrow. Oh, well, face a great pitcher, tip your hat, all that crap. But no, they fought, and they forced Terry Francona to put in Graham Ashcraft. They forced Terry Francona to put his closer in a game they were leading 6-0. Because it was 6-2 and you had runners at second and third. And so those guys, not only do they have to pitch, but they also have to warm up. And now you're getting more looks at them. Now you might affect their availability later in the series. It's one of these little things that the Cubs are doing. And they're doing a lot of the little things right that make a difference, even if it didn't pay off immediately.
Right. Great point. Great little piece of audio there, Crawly. No doubt. Let's move over to game number 2. And now Drew Pomerantz was the starter. Nick Lodolo was the starter for the Reds, and this was the second day in a row that the first baseman, Michael Busch, was not in the starting lineup.
Yeah, Dustin, and the funny thing about this one, because they're two lefties, lefty, Abbott and Lodolo. That's why you didn't see Busch. But the thing is that we thought that we're like very questioning. This was we said this could be a big start for Ben Brown, and then the news came after we recorded that Ben wasn't starting. It was going to be Drew Pomerantz.
Yeah, very weird. But after hearing the explanation post game, we may or may not get to that directly. But I can tell you what he said. I actually bought into it. But let's get into this game. So
Pomerantz. He's given the ball. He has a nice 1-2-3 inning, striking out Elly De La Cruz to end the inning. And for the first time, Dustin, in 5 games, the Reds did not score a first inning run. So in every game they had played so far, the 5 games, they had scored a first inning run. So Thank God. And it only took Drew Pomerantz 9 pitches to get it done. And so I'm thinking to myself, all right, maybe let him go 2. But no, they're going with Ben Brown. And Ben Brown.
Well, that's what I thought with that. Honestly, Crawly, that's what I thought was even a little bit more strange is to your point about how effective Pomerantz was, right off the bat. I was almost like, well, why not give him 6 outs?
Not only that, it's not like he pitched 20, like I said, 9 pitches.
Right. That's what I mean. I was, and now, for lack of a better term, even though, the Cubs won the series and this game ends up working out, you kind of wasted an up and down of Drew Pomerantz, in my opinion, because, you might have needed him later, but whatever, it worked. So whatever.
Here's what Craig Counsell had to say about the start that Ben Brown had. And these are mighty high words, and we got some quotes in there from Ben Brown as well.
It's great. Absolutely his best start of the year. On the attack, aggressive, and just in the strike zone a whole bunch, controlling counts a whole bunch. So it was outstanding performance. Well, I mean, it was how he controlled counts. I think he just never. There's very few 3-ball counts even. I think I remember the Benson 3-ball count to lead off the 6th, maybe. I'm not sure that he had another 3-ball count. Maybe in this first inning he did, obviously. But, he just controlled counts, and that means he's, early strikes. And on a day like today, it's like challenge hitters to put the ball in play.
I think it is really reflective of how I open up the game. Today I opened up the game with a strike. I think if you want to go through if I throw a ball 1 my next start, I'm not going to hit the panic button. But if you go through my last couple of starts, even dating back to last year, there's not a lot of strike 1 to start the game. So that's just going to be important for me. And I think just having good executed, even like I said, even if it's ball 1, there's no reason to hit the panic button. I can throw a strike. It's not that hard, but this is pretty cool to see that. Trying to lock in on pitch one. I think we just saw that today. I think that from innings 1 to 6 for me at least, I felt like I was really able to slow the game down. Obviously the results were pretty good and there wasn't a lot of traffic, but I felt like I noticed just more out of me today.
So Craig Counsell says his best start of the year, he pitched 6 scoreless innings, gave up 1 hit, 1 walk, and tied a season-high 9 strikeouts. Dustin, you heard it in the clip. Every time he comes out, and I saw this in the last 4 starts for sure, it was just like the ball was all over the place. Like he didn't even know where it was going.
Yep.
And then he would settle down 2, 3, 4. We talked about in the last podcast that when you looked at his ERA in the first inning, it was close to 10. Okay. And so they sit there and he literally is just boom, strike 1, boom, strike 2. He's going at these guys. The trouble we've seen with Ben Brown is he falls behind hitters 3-1, 3-0, and you know it's coming. You know what I mean? And he's getting nailed.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
But I think, you talked a little bit about the end of the game interviews, and the thing that interested me the most was Ben Brown was talking about the mental struggles he's had this season. And so let me play a clip here for you.
We really, on the mental skills department, and try to implement some things that would help me out, just calming the heart rate down that first inning. We're still working on things to eventually that I can go out there and start games in the future. But I think for this week, just to have the opener and to be able to just warm up like a reliever and have fun and get to have the bullpen guys send me off. And it was a really good executed plan, and it went all according to plan. And just thankful and grateful to even have the opportunity to pitch today.
I mean,
so is that what are they going to do next time?
What
are they doing against when he's gonna pop back up against the Tigers? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Well, Thursday's TBD, right? Thursday's TBD right now. How is that working?
So I think that I don't know what they're going to do yet, but it's something that they talked about the focus on. It is just kind of his preparation, being ready. And Ben talked about kind of waiting for something good to happen before locking in, he like a good defensive play or something would get him online, is the way that he described it. Mm-hmm. Instead of being aggressive and coming out being like, I don't need anyone to make any plays, I'm going to take control early on. And so I think, they asked Dansby about it, and Dansby said, look, it's hard when you're a young guy. You don't want to disappoint anybody. You're worried about going to the minor leagues. I think, using the mental skills coordinator, I know Joe Madden was big on this back in the day and all this stuff. It is really important, especially for these young guys. And I think a lot of it is probably mental and not letting little things. Sometimes, guys just let things get to them and then all of a sudden it spirals out of control. You just have to focus one pitch at a time, one batter at a time. And again, being aggressive, being smart with the counts. And this is the thing about Ben Brown. You saw right there what he's capable of and why people are so excited about this kid. And so hopefully, he can, I think he's going to get more starts. I don't know if it's going to be in the Tigers series, but I guarantee he's going to get more starts. But I think very similar to Matt Shaw going to Iowa or something, sometimes guys need a reset. And he kind of talked about, just the guys in the bullpen, cheering them on, getting them out there and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you talked about Craig Counsell talking afterwards, you don't have to start off right away having to go against the best 3 hitters, because that's usually who you're facing when you start that game. Friedel, Espinal, and Elly De La Cruz, right?
Yep.
And so they only you don't face them right away, so it's a little bit of easier, and then you don't have to see them a third time through the order.
This was not an easy game though for the Cubs to end up winning. This was a tough one.
No, Lodolo and the Pen were able to navigate in and out of trouble most of the game. Bottom of the first, 2 on, no out. Seiya pops up and Carson Kelly hits into a double play to end the threat. They had a couple runners on in the 4th and couldn't push a run across. Top of the 5th, Nico Horner hits a leadoff single, but Justin Turner hits into a double play. Bottom of the 6th, Cubs have runners at first and second with 1 out. Carson Kelly hits into his 2nd double play of the game. Pete singled in the 7th to lead off the 7th, stole a base. He was stranded. And finally they're able to break through in the 8th, Dustin, thanks to some rough defense.
It was rough. It was rough. The weather was rough though. Like you said, real sunny skies, some goofy wind, but the Cubs were beneficiaries, no doubt.
Yes, sir. And this is interesting here, right? So Ian Happ, when Matt Shaw leads off the 8th with a walk. How often do we say, how about those coming around to score? How often?
Yep.
Ian Happ grounds out, and then Ian and Kyle Tucker singles. So you got runners at first and second, one out, and then Seiya Suzuki comes up the bat, and Cedric Benson is playing right field, okay? And as he's playing right field, he hits one, and I'm just going to let Ian Happ and Craig Counsell kind of take this away from here, right here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough play. It's wind, the sun. It's the foul line is right on the wall. It's a tricky. There was a lot of action on kind of both lines today, and just a part of baseball. And we hit a ball in a good spot, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough play. I think especially that point of the game, right field's getting the most amount of sun. Plus the ball's moving in the foul line, and you don't know it's kind of different balls play differently. There was one I think McLean hit today that carried a little bit on Pete in center. We were all a little bit surprised by it, and then Ellie hits the ball 103 and it's coming backwards. And so sometimes that ball to right field is going to end up 30 rows deep in the stands. Sometimes like that it's going to stay. And so we're lucky to have a lot of experience out here and be able to deal with it. But definitely when opposing teams come in, have an understanding for getting out of the box and knowing that it's going to be challenging.
So I'll tell you this, I love the renovations at Wrigley Field, Dustin. I've talked about it. I could do a whole hour-long podcast about the renovations and the upgrades and everything. But I can tell you there's a couple things I don't like. Number one, I don't like the Catalina Club that underneath where the press box used to be. Hate that. Wish they never would have done that. It used to be a common area where people used to be able to hang out, have drinks, get food and drinks. I really hate the Catalina Club. I think
is that on the like the back side though, right? You can't see from there.
You can, yeah, you can see through there. You can, before, yeah, you used to be able to walk through there and you could see, right? You could watch the game and then you would go underneath it, and then there would be vending on both sides, and then there was a patio outside, and they took all that away.
Okay.
So that's all.
I have not been in 2 years, Crawly. I am actually returning to Wrigley the next homestand. I'm going to the Friday game and I'm working the Friday game. I am filling in for Zach. Little breaking news on the podcast. I'm doing the pre and post. No fifth inning. No play by play for me. Zach doesn't need the inning off.
Can I call in?
We don't. I wish we took calls. They don't take calls anymore.
I know that kills me. When Grody used to do that, used to be the best, man.
Yep. Maybe I could talk him into it that day.
I will call in. I promise you. But
and then Saturday, I'm going as a fan.
But the other thing I hate is that they moved the seats closer to the foul line. So like the actual quote, everyone jokes around with the Bartman seat, that doesn't even exist anymore. There's like 4 more rows that were added. And so that puts you right there, but there's no room there, Dustin. It's like 6 inches between the foul line and the wall. And so Seiya hits one, and Benson, he's not used to playing there. He's looking there. He's got the sun. The wind's going everywhere. And then he kind of gator arms it. And so that ends up being a double for the Cubs. And so that's huge, right? So the Cubs have a 1-0 lead now. Carson Kelly walks to load the bases for PCA, but he pops out for the second out. But then Dustin, a really big play. Dansby Swanson hits one to Ellie De La Cruz, shortstop, right? He waits for the ball rather than charging it. And Dansby is hustling all the way, beats it by a half step. A big insurance run scores, and the Cubs are up 2-0. But this is important. I want you to hear this from both Craig and from Dansby here.
It gets us an extra run, absolutely, and it's the small thing, but I think it's a thing that all your teammates see, and you see the benefit of it. And it's when you ground out to shortstop, sometimes you're frustrated, right? But he said, "I'll be frustrated," and after 5 seconds, and he put together a great hard 90 and got us an extra run. 50 times and not be rewarded for it. So you don't know when you get rewarded for it, and that's what makes it hard. It sounds easy to say, but it makes it hard to do those other 49 times. The game doesn't you can complete that play like Dansby did.
So he's just taught to get down the line. It's really that simple. You never can take any play for granted, just in any situation as a player, and just got going down the line, and fortunately for us, was able to beat the throw and give us a little bit of an insurance run, going into the top of the ninth. Maybe just running in anger, maybe. Just that's what.
Running in anger, Dustin. And so what I liked about what Craig said about that, here's Dansby Swanson. He's probably your highest paid player, right?
I believe so, right? Yeah.
But there he is. What is he doing? Hustling out on a ground ball. How many superstars have we seen that don't hustle that out?
Yeah, I mean, he
does.
definitely he plays the game right. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that's important that everybody sees it. Young players, old players, everybody, this is what you do. The little things that add up. And that was a huge play because later on, when you get to the 9th inning, PCA makes a phenomenal catch with 1 out to rob TJ Friedel. StatCast had it at only a 10% catch probability, but for PCA, no problem. Cubs win this one 2-0.
Yeah, 2-0. You'll take it, right? It was a fun game. I listened to a ton of that one on the radio, so I was super happy they ended up getting that win. That moves us into the Sunday, so the series was on the line, and Jameson Taillon, maybe I owe him a bit of an apology, but he just keeps on keeping on. He had another quality start, but he also he gave up another home run, right? Two strikeouts, 1 walk, doesn't overpower anybody, but got the job done. He eats a lot of innings.
So, Dustin, I was at this game.
Okay. Well, you had the big giveaway, right? You had the big giveaway on Sunday. You got it? Did you get up? Oh, there it is.
There he is.
All right.
Shota Imanaga with the kanji on the side at the locker room. All the detail right there. He's got a ball in there. He's got his Imanaga away jersey. He's got the Starbucks with where it says Mike on it, because that's what he would tell people rather than Shota. Yeah. And so this is the bobblehead. The line for the bobblehead was pretty good. They actually let everyone in early. They let everyone in like 15 minutes early. They don't always do that, but I think they're trying to avoid the lines. So these were the lines kind of right here. This was the line just to get into Gallagher Way. So the line was bad just to kind of get in early. And then we went to the game. I was with my buddy Joe Kilgallen, and then Elio Benitez and Miguel Esparza from the Spanish broadcast came down. It was great to see those guys. And I did get to fly the W, Dustin. So
you got to fly the W.
It was a lot of
view. There's a good view of those seats. You got a good view on those seats.
Oh yeah. I love those seats. And so with the game right there, Dustin, you're sitting there and it looked kind of like the same thing where you're like, oh man, was the offense going to break through? Like, Kyle Tucker gets hit by a pitch in the second, say it walks, and PCA singles, but they can't score a run. And then you're sitting there in the second and Bush walks and they can't score on that. But they break through in the third with 1 out. Kyle Tucker hits a ground rule double. The Ivy Monster eats it. So it's a ground rule double, hands in the air, don't touch it, disappeared, it's gone. So Seiya Suzuki flies out sharply for the second out. And then PCA singles on a ground ball to Jake Freely. Kyle Tucker scores. The Cubs are up 1-0. And so, Dustin, here comes another big play. Dansby Swanson doubles on a line drive to Will Benson, and the PCA scores. Cubs are up 2-0. And again, Benson, this time he's in left field. He makes another mistake where the ball falls out of his glove. I mean, he just had a rough weekend. And then Michael Bush, sitting for a couple days, hits a home run on a fly ball.
That was really nice. That was not a cheapie either. He really got a hold of that.
Dustin, the wind was howling in at my face for 9 innings. I'm telling you, I was shocked that one made it out where it was hit. That's a 4-0 game there. And then, the Cubs were able to add on a little bit. PCA had a really good game after struggling especially on Friday, but he got a single and then he was able to steal second. And then Michael Bush, again, that combination of PCA Bush singles, PCA scores to make it 5-0. And then you were talking about Jameson Taillon. He was cruising along, pitching a scoreless game in the 6th. He makes a big mistake. He's got 2 outs. He gets McLean to pop out and TJ Friedel to ground out. He walks Santiago Espinal. And I know if there's one pitch that pissed JMO off or one at bat, that was it, because you can't walk Santiago Espinal. They have to face Elly De La Cruz. Okay. Just can't do it. Just put it right down the middle and let Espinal do what he's going to do. Maybe he'll single, maybe he'll double, maybe he'll triple. I don't know. But at this point in time, you don't walk him, especially with the wind blowing in. And then Elly De La Cruz, who found out before the game that his sister passed away.
Rough.
And he decided he wanted to play. He crushes one, Dustin. 423 feet. It is the first home run ball that landed onto Sheffield of this season. Wow. So, I mean, look, you know what? Our heart goes out to the De La Cruz family. Obviously, we don't ever want something like that. That's tragic. I remember Javi Baez having to deal with that when he was around, and it's just a really tough thing. But when you talk about JMO, I mean, again, 6 and a third, gave up 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 2 Ks. It was the home run to Ellie De La Cruz. And again, Dustin, look, you're going to give up home. That's what Ellie De La Cruz does. He hits home runs.
Correct.
Espinal. That's the only thing. Now, if you would have given up that home run to, Benson, then I would have been mad. But you know what? Tip your hat to Ellie De La Cruz. And again, it was whatever. I'm not going to get too upset about that. But it's the Cubs were able to kind of break open here in the 7th inning. Back-to-back errors, Dustin. Back-to-back errors. You had Seiya reaching on an error by third baseman Santiago Espinal. And then I was talking about this before. Will Benson almost collides with the infielder, loses the ball. And now you got runners at second and third. Nico Hoerner. Nico Hoerner, I'm watching him, and I'm telling my buddy Joe next to me, I'm like, there's no one else other than Kyle Tucker I'd rather want to take this at bat. Bases loaded, 0-2 count. 0-2 count, Dustin. He gets a ball, middle. It's a miss again. And so he singles, 7-2. Now you're able to breathe a little bit and come back and, you're able to kind of go with Presley and Brazier, give him a couple innings of work on there. You don't have to go with Palencia. You can rest him for a day. And it was just a great series win on a Sunday. They're starting to win on Sundays. They're starting to win series finales. And Dustin, again.
And that's what, 6? That's 6 series in a row, right?
6 in a row. And you're looking at a team right now that I feel is hot and they're rolling. It was a fun part to be about, a game to be in, and it was a great homestand. Great
homestand. 5-1. I don't care that the Rockies were in. It doesn't matter. Great homestand. Great crowds. Cool giveaways. So that was a good one. This is the Fly the W podcast. It is episode number 35. It is season number 4. We called this one Cubs Starters Get Revenge versus the Reds. You're listening, you're downloading, and reviewing. Please subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. 5-star reviews, we'll take those as well. You can email us, Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com. And don't forget, you can watch us on Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page, as some of you are right now. So the Cubs now, Crawly, 15 games over 500.
A season high watermark, 37-22. And not only that, the Cardinals kind of lost a little bit of ground. They're 4 back. Yeah. Now the Brewers are, again, they're
7 in a row. 7
in a row. They're like a horror villain that just won't go away.
Swept the Phillies. Team with the Cubs are going to be playing in a little bit.
But Dustin, we talked about this 6 games in a week against the Reds. Yep. Now you put some distance. They're
real
8.5 back.
Yep.
You put some
real distance. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And of course the Pirates, they're 5-5 in their last 10. They're 15.5 back. So it's been a rough one for them. But I got to say, the NL Central is a lot more competitive than I think people were going to give it credit for. And so just kind of watching this, it's been kind of interesting to watch what the Cardinals are doing, to watch what the Brewers are doing. And like I said, every time you think that, hey, okay, we're going to, they're done, they're not going to do anything, et cetera, they just keep coming back. One of these teams, the Brewers or the Cardinals, they're not going away, and they
not going away yet. No. And so, Crawly, with that win, that 37th win, that ties them with the Mets for the most wins in the National League.
Absolutely. And so it's, if you would have told me, especially after looking at the schedule, that this is where the Cubs would be, I would think you were crazy. But no, they're here, they're fighting, they're doing everything that they need to do, and I like where they are right now. So no complaints. I don't think there's any Cub fan right now that could actually complain when you see what's going. But when we look at the power rankings, Dustin, you could see this on the screen, right?
Hold on one second. I clicked away. I was looking at the standings with you on another page. I cannot see the power rankings, Crawly.
The power rankings are not coming up here. Let me present this here. So if you're taking a look right here, you got the Giants at number 10. They were previously 7. So okay. you're seeing a little bit of action
little
on
movement.
They're down from 7. Mariners from 9 to 8. From 8 to 9, sorry. Cardinals are up to number 8. They were previously 12. And then you got the Padres back up to 7. The Yankees, after dropping 2 to the Dodgers, are at 6. They were previously number 4. The Mets from 6 to 5. And then the Phillies, after having a tough time with the Brewers, they dropped from number 1 to number 4. The Cubs up from number 5 to number 3. The Dodgers at number 2, and the team the Cubs play after the Nationals, the Detroit Tigers, are the highest ranked team in baseball according to
Isn't
MLB.
that crazy? Isn't that something? So, Crawly, after the power rankings, we saw standings. How would things play out if the season were to end? There you go. I can see it. Little bracket, MLB playoff picture as of June the 2nd, and that is today.
So if you take a look, this is interesting because right now the Cardinals and San Fran would get the 6 seed right there, while the Dodgers would get the 3 seed. And then when you take a look, the Phillies would get 4 and the Padres would get 5. The Cubs would get the number 1 seed and have a bye, and the Mets would get the number 2 seed. This, to me, Dustin, is stunning right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We thought the Cubs would be good, but not this good this soon, based on the teams that they were playing to start things off. So very, very impressive, very cool to look at. So little injury news, roster stuff to get into. Kyle Tucker left the game yesterday with kind of a banged up finger, but the x-rays were negative. So he should probably be back, or maybe he misses one game. Maybe he DHs. They, leave the glove off him, something like that. Suzuki could play a game and right, no problem.
I'm just going to say I was a little disappointed with everything, the way that worked. I don't know.
Would you want to hurt?
I didn't like I didn't like the stolen base call at the second.
Okay.
I thought it was kind of early in the game.
Okay. A little too aggressive.
A little too aggressive. And again, we've seen both Seiya and now Kyle Tucker get injured on slides.
Yeah.
And those
so Porter Hodge, Crawly, he now doesn't have an oblique, but now he's got a hip.
Yeah, the oblique now is healing, but the hip is no good. And so that's kind of the issue where we are. Craig Counsell gave us some info on Hodge.
So Porter's doing well. The oblique is kind of resolved. It's his left hip that's bothering him right now. That's frankly slowed him down. We're good on the oblique. So we're trying to get through that right now, making progress, and hope to be at the kind of the bullpen stage next week. But because of the time he's missed, it'll definitely require some rehab outings. So we're looking at a couple weeks still. Did imaging.
Couple weeks.
Yeah.
Not good, Dustin. Not good.
Couple weeks still. I don't like that, Crawly.
No.
I don't like a couple of more weeks. All right, Crawly. It's what's next?
Tyson Miller and Eli Morgan. I've been waiting for Tyson Miller. We got an update on Tyson Miller. Eli Morgan, I'm okay without him, but here's what Craig said about that.
Tyson's back pitching again. Eli is in bullpen stage.
So
right, very enthusiastic.
We got some pitching from Tyson. Hey, I still think Tyson Miller could make a difference on this team. He's just had setback after setback. And then again, like you mentioned earlier, what about Shota Imanaga? And he's going to have to make a rehab start. I think that goes without saying. He's in Arizona right now, but I'm just very curious. These next starts for Colin Ray and Ben Brown. I know everyone keeps saying, "Oh, put Ben Brown in the bullpen," or I don't know what I want to do just yet. And when you saw what Ben Brown did, and if he can get over that hump, I really feel like he could be a front end rotation guy, not just a guy. You saw that dominance in the last game he played.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it before, but we have to see it consistently. And with Colin Ray, if you watched him last year with the Brewers, same kind of thing. He had a really good start to the season, and then he kind of came back down to earth, and then it got to a point where he wasn't even on the postseason roster last year.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I'm not one. I know there's a lot of people, he has 2 pitches, put Ben Brown in there. To me, it's not that simple, and I'm going to kind of just wait and see. But with Shota coming around, it's obviously only going to help the team. It's going to make the bullpen stronger. It's going to make the rotation stronger. But I'm just hoping, there's still some things I feel like have to be sorted out. And so it's a good problem to have, Dustin. We're sitting here with 2 months in the book.
Definitely not bad, right? No.
2 months in the book, and first place in the NL, and things are looking good. And the fact that the Cubs have been doing this while being pretty beat up. They've lost
top two pitchers not in the rotation.
Two pitchers not in the rotation. One
loss for the year, right? One loss for the year. Yeah.
One's lost for the year. They've somehow, and they didn't have that deep of a rotation to begin with. right? Like, so the fact that they're still in first place, and again, I'm just waiting to see what happens when it gets warm and that wind starts blowing out, what this offense can do.
Well,
we've seen what they did in Cincinnati. We've seen what they've done in other places. It's just been a rough couple months at Wrigley.
Hopefully by the time they get back and they play the Pirates, it'll be, 80s every day, right? That would be nice. This is the Fly the W podcast, episode 35 of season number 4. And you're listening to us right now, perhaps, or we're hoping that you download and review and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. Those are cool with us. Email us, crawleysclubhouse@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can watch us, as some of you are, Crawley's Clubhouse YouTube page. All right, Cubs off today as we're doing this on a Monday. And they've got the Nationals on the road in D.C. And this is going to be the start of 26 games in 27 days for the Cubs. So this is a little bit of a gauntlet they're going to go through. So any big additions or subtractions to the Nationals heading into this season?
Yeah, if you're looking at it in 2024, they had the exact same record as 2023, 71 wins and 91 losses. They finished 4th in their division. The Marlins were worse, but they were 24 games behind the Phillies. The Cubs crushed the Nationals last season, sweeping the Nats in 3 games in Washington at the end of August and taking 3 of 4 at Wrigley. So they won the season series last year 6-1. But they are in a rebuilding phase right now, Dustin, with a lot of young players. They signed a couple veteran position players and pitchers, but nothing all that exciting. But Dustin, one guy that we were interested in for the Cubs a few years back, I think was Josh Bell, remember?
Yes.
And he's been doing really well.
Yeah, I wanted him to be the first baseman now.
Yeah, Nathaniel Lowe. So you got a couple guys that could hit homers, so they could slug. They got Ahmad Rosario and Paul DeYoung, former Cardinal DeYoung, to get some right-handed. They re-signed Trevor Williams and added Michael Soroka, Jorge Lopez, and Colin Poche. But if you've been watching, they just DFA'd Jorge Lopez, who had a really good year for the Cubs last year coming out of the pen. I'm wondering if they're going to kick the tires on that.
Yeah,
one.
maybe. Right? Maybe.
Now, the Nationals this season are slightly below 500 with a record of 28-31, but that's good for 3rd place in the NL East. They're in front of the Braves, Dustin. The Nationals are in front of the Braves.
Crazy.
But they are 9 games behind the division-leading Mets. They're 6-4, though, in their last 10. They just took 2 or 3 from the Diamondbacks. The offense has been rocking lately. The Nationals scored 9 or more runs in 4 out of their last 5 games. And for the Nationals this month of May, it's been nearly 2 years, Dustin, since the Nationals had a winning record at the end of a month. 2 years.
Wow.
And so they finally broke that streak by going 15-12 in May. So that's the first time they played a month had a month over 500 since August 2023. Now they're 14-14 at home and 15-17 on the road. They're also 15-17 against teams with the winning record. They took 2 out of 3 this last weekend against the Diamondbacks. They are going to be without center fielder Jacob Young, who has a left shoulder sprain. Outfielder Dylan Cruz has that dreaded oblique injury that keeps going around. Pitcher Derek Law has right forearm inflammation. And again, Jorge Lopez was just let go. So just kind of keep your eye on that. I'm just saying.
Tail of the tape, Crawley. Tail of the tape.
All right.
There's the bell.
Now, here's the thing about the Nationals. Even though they got Josh Bell, he's helped them a little bit. But when it comes to batting average, Cubs are still second in baseball, 261. Nationals are 19th at 244. But they have been hot the last week. These rankings are over the whole year. But if you look at the last week, there hasn't been a hotter hitting team than the Nationals.
No.
Slug, the Cubs have the advantage, 3rd at 447 versus 11th for the Nationals, 396. But this is interesting, Dustin. Runners in scoring position, the Cubs are 2nd in all of baseball with 298. Batting average with runners in scoring position, but the Nationals are 3rd with 277.
Okay.
So even though
Keep them off the bases, right? Keep them off the bases.
Right. Even though they're 19th in batting average, they get them in when they get them on.
Yep.
And so that's what you got to keep it in. The big problem that the Nationals have, though, is their pitching. The Cubs have the edge there. Starting pitching ERA, Cubs are 19th in baseball with 4.02, while the Nationals are 24th with 4.45. But the Cubs bullpen has been improving. Now they're 15th. Remember, they were 24th, 23rd.
They had a good month. They had a good month in May.
Yeah, they're rolling. They're 128 whip. But the Nationals have the second to worst whip in all of bullpens in baseball, 158. So I think this is an opportunity for the Cubs, like they did against the Reds that last weekend, not this last one, but the one before, get into that bullpen and really do some damage. And then fielding, the Cubs have 24 defensive runs saved, good for 6 in baseball, but the Nationals are negative 14 runs saved, where that's 25th in baseball. You saw it hurt Cincinnati, and the Cubs, every time we've been watching a team, play the Cubs, it seems like every time the Cubs are taking advantage of mistakes. So if you have bad defense, that has just absolutely been helping the Cubs.
All right, these are all 5:45 starts, so that's good for a guy like me getting up at 2:30 in the morning. Cade Horton, 2-0, 3.98 ERA in 4 games, is your starter for your first place Cubs.
Yeah, he's got 16 strikeouts in 23rd innings pitch. In his first start against White Sox, he gave up 3 runs in 5 innings, all to Miguel Vargas. In his next start at Miami, he gave up 1 run in 5 1/3 innings. And in his last start against Colorado, he gave up 2 runs on 4 hits with a season high 6 strikeouts and only 1 walk. And he also had a season high 6 innings of work. He just continues to pitch 6 solid innings every time out is what we're seeing. And as a skipper, you got to be pleased with what you're seeing out of him. He just, like I keep saying, he looks like he belongs. He's not blowing me away with anything other than his poise. Like I look at him and I'm like, this guy is just confident. He's not afraid of anyone in front of him. And he keeps giving the Cubs a chance to win every time he comes out. He just looks advanced beyond his years.
Yes, he does. And he just seems like a real competitor. That's what I like
Bulldog.
about it.
Bulldog.
He's got that look about him. Just really like that part about it.
Like Ted Lilly.
That's a good point. That's good. That's a good comp, if you will.
Right. And for the Nationals, you remember old friend Trevor Williams? He played half a season for the Cubs in 2021 before being included with Javi Baez in that trade that brought PCA to the north side. He's 3-5 with a 5.69 ERA and 11 games started with 43 strikeouts and 55 1/3 innings pitched. Williams faced the Braves twice in the last week. It didn't go well either time. On May 15th, he gave up 4 runs, 3 earned, and 4 1/3 innings of work. Next start against Atlanta, he gave up 5 runs on 4 hits, 3 walks, 3 2/3 innings of work. He did have a nice bounce back outing in his last start against the Mariners. He pitched 6 scoreless innings and allowed only 3 hits. Williams 4-8 lifetime against the Cubs with a 4.55 ERA in 18 games, 14 of those starts. Dansby is 5-17 against Williams, but Ian Happ is 6 for 28. So not a lot of luck for Ian when it comes to Trevor Williams.
All right, game number 2, the return of Matthew Boyd. Mackenzie Gore going for the Nationals. Boyd 5-2 with a 3.08 ERA in 11 games. Started with 64 strikeouts and 61.5 and a 2/3 innings of work. He's been pretty good with the Ks.
Yeah, and he has to be happy he doesn't have to face the Reds this weekend. Against the White Sox on May 17th, he gave up 3 runs in 6 innings against the White Sox, but against the Reds, he gave up 4 runs on 8 hits in 4 innings. And in his last start against the Rockies, he pitched 6 innings of shutout ball, tying a season high with 8 strikeouts. He's only faced the Nationals once in his career in 2023, going 5 2/3 innings and giving up 3 runs. Not a lot of Nationals hitters have seen Boyd, but be careful of Josh Bell. Not only is he hot right now, but against Matthew Boyd, he is 4 for 8 with 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. So look out. Nathaniel Lowe is 1 for 6.
All right. That's how about the Cubs against this guy, Mackenzie Gore?
Mackenzie Gore is a 26-year-old lefty who's 2-5 with a 3.16 ERA and 12 games started. Dustin, he has a whopping 101 strikeouts in 68 1/3 innings pitched. In fact, he was the first pitcher in MLB to reach 100 strikeouts this season. How about that?
Yeah.
Don't let this win-lose record. Again, this is why sometimes you got to look closer than the win-loss records. He's
right.
He is a tough pitcher to face. He strikes out a ton of batters, obviously. Twice this season, he struck out 13 batters and has a 2.63 ERA in the month of May. The thing, though, is with all these strikeouts, and he doesn't walk a lot of people, but occasionally he'll walk 2, maybe 3. But with all the strikeouts, 13 strikeouts and 3 walks, your pitch count's going to get high, right?
Yes.
So that can get elevated quickly, and he may not last long in the game. On May 16th against Baltimore, he gave up 2 runs on 10 hits, 9 Ks, and 2 walks, but he's only able to go 3 2/3 innings. His next start against the Giants, he gave up 1 run in 6 innings with 9 Ks, and his last start against the Mariners, he pitched 6 scoreless innings and struck out 8. Gore's 2-2 lifetime against the Cubs in 4 starts with a 5.24 ERA. Only 2 Cubs have good numbers against Gore. Seiya's 3 for 7 with a double, and Kyle Tucker is 3 for 4. So maybe they don't need Kyle Tucker against Trevor Williams, but it would be nice to have him against Mackenzie Gore. And if you just go to Baseball Savant and you take a look at his percentile rankings for Mackenzie Gore, you see all this red here, Dustin? This is just showing you what a great pitcher. The pitching run value, the strikeouts. He's in the 97th percentile for strikeouts. And so he doesn't give up a lot of hard hits. He doesn't give up a lot of ground balls. It's a lot of strikeouts. So just kind of, like I said, be willing to work there. He has a fastball that averages 95, a curveball, a slider, and a changeup, but his stuff's off the charts.
So game number 3, you've got Colin Ray here. I've seen also TBD. So we'll see what happens. We talked about Colin a little earlier in the podcast, but if it is Colin Ray, what do we got?
3-2 with the 3.96 ERA and 12 games. 9 of them starts with 43 strikeouts and 52 in the third innings. We talked about segment 1 about how Colin's season was looking really good until he had to face the Reds twice in the span of a week. Gave up 6 runs in each game and 5 home runs in total. His ERA from before he pitched the Reds to after jumped from 2.38 to 3.96. So he almost doubled his ERA because of having to face the Reds. Luckily for Ray, the Cubs don't face the Reds until August, if you can believe that, Dustin. But this game's important so that he can get back on track. He's 1-0 lifetime against the Nationals in 2 games. One of those a start. No one on the Nationals has more than 3 at-bats against him, and the only one who has a hit is Josh Bell, who's 1 for 2 in a very small sample size.
And who are the Cubs facing?
They're facing Jake Irving, I believe, who's 5-1 with a 3.93 ERA and 12 games started with 47 strikeouts and 73 in the third innings. So his ERA is nearly a full run higher than Mackenzie's Gore, but he has 5 wins compared to 2 for Mackenzie. So that just goes to show you there, right?
Yeah.
The Nationals seem to win when Jake Irving's on the mound. If we look at his last 3 starts, on May 17th against the Orioles, he gave up 2 runs and 6 in the third innings. On May 24th against the Giants, he had his best start of the season, pitching 8 shutout innings with 7 Ks. But he had his worst start of the season on Friday, giving up 6 earned runs in 5 innings. But he still got the win in a very crazy game in Arizona. Irving is 0-2 lifetime against the Cubs with a 9 ERA in 3 starts. Michael Busch is 3 for 5 against Irving, but Dansby Swanson 1 for 6. He throws a curveball mostly, along with a 4-seamer, sinker, and changeup. But really kind of everything goes around that curveball.
All right, so who's hot and who is not?
How about Michael Busch? 5 for his last 11, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, slashing 455, 538, 909. How about letting him try against some lefties, Craig? Come on.
Please.
Nico Horner, 7 for his last 18 with 2 RBIs, slashing 389, 450, 444. And Kyle Tucker, he said he's probably going to miss some games, but 5 for 14, 357, 550, 429 slash. But also I want to throw in Matt Shaw, 5 for his last 17 with 2 RBIs, slashing 294, 333, 294. So getting on base.
All right. And the knots?
Dansby Swanson, 3 for his last 19 with 2 RBIs, slashing 158, 200, 211. And Carson Kelly, I was glad. I think I'm done with that experiment of him batting cleanup. It was fun while it lasted, but he's 0 for his last 11. He's slashing 0.08.
He needs to go back down to like 7th or 8th.
Yep, I'm good with that.
All right, Josh Bell. We talked about him a bunch. We know he's on that hot list. How about who else should the Cubs fans be worried about when the Nationals have the bat in the hand?
I'm telling you right now, Dustin, they have 6 everyday players hitting 280 or higher. That's what I'm talking about, this team being hot right now. Josh Bell, 391. Luis Garcia, 346. Robert Hassel, 333. James Wood, 304, all in the last week. These guys are all hitting. The only ones not hitting is the catcher, Keibert Ruiz, slashing. He's 4 for his last 22, slashing 182, 182, 227. And shortstop, CJ Abrams, 3 for his last 23, slashing 130, 310, 174. But this is a very hot hitting team that the Cubs are catching right now.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm curious to hear what the predictions are going to be. And we've reached that point, Crawly. It is prediction time. What do you I'll go first this time. I put you on the spot. I'm still going to say the Cubs take 2 of 3. I think they're in good shape in game number 1 Tuesday night. And I think if they'll find a way to win one of the others. You kind of got me a little worried about game number 2.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I got game 1. The Cubs should absolutely take game 1. I'm pretty confident in game 3. I think Colin Ray gets back on track. I just think Mackenzie Gore is a really tough matchup for anybody right now. And so that's the one I'm least confident in. But again, this is not the Nationals from the last couple of years. They're not there yet. They need to build off of this for next season, but they're not the pushover that they've been the last couple of years.
They're on the rise. They're going to compete. They're not the Rockies.
No,
they're not the Rockies.
No, they're going to give you a challenge. So I still think the Cubs are going to take 2 out of 3.
All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. And if you've got questions, we might have an answer. I know I have an answer. Crawly's always got an answer. Email us, Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com. And you can watch us by subscribing to Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. I know there's some people listening and watching right now as we do this live.
Yes, sir. I'm very happy that Cubs 2025 said it was interesting to see what they do when Imanaga returns. I think we both agreed. We don't know yet. No room in the pen, but don't just assume Ben Brown goes there. And then Chip Palea says, at work, boys, but we'll watch the replay tonight. Thanks, everybody who did jump in. And again, first place after 1/3 of the season. We got 2/3 to go. Road trip coming up. Let's get started in Washington. Go Cubs!
It's all over.